My experience as a monk for a day in Léhon Abbey in Léhon, France. Hello, I'm back from France. Got back earlier this week and I sat down to make a video, but I was so wiped out from jet lag and traveling international is grueling. The lines you gotta stand in for security, different security checks. This is really, it took me 24 hours to get home from Paris, starting, and I'm just gonna blab on here, but I'm gonna relate to you my day experiencing the life of a monk, Benedictine monk in a 1200-year-old abbey. I'll get to that. I'm just going to blab a bit here. I gotta get my tea. Sorry. I haven't done this in a while. Good to be back. Good to be back. I hope all of you are doing well. Very well. And I think about you all and pray for you all. And I know each of us have our own lives with everything that comes and goes to each of us. And you know, I'm no different in that regard. And we all have our trials and our needs, our weaknesses, and our spiritual journey. But yeah, it took me better part of 24 hours to get home. Starting in navigating Paris's metros early in the morning to get to the airport, and then going through Charles de Gaulle, all their security checks and everything, and I wound up losing my belt. Somewhere Charles de Gaulle, somebody's got my belt. Yeah, I mean, you go through the security checks, you kind of rush through like cattle. You gotta take your shoes off, your belt off, empty everything out, and there's so many people that are trying to get through and everybody's tired. And you get through and you move on through, you're kind of corralled, like, really you are. They corral you and channel you. It's good in a way that you can't really make a mistake too easily and miss your gate. You know, they got it laid out that way, but it's also hard to go back if you forgot something. Like, I got to my gate to leave Charles de Gaulle and I realized I left my belt back at the security checkpoint. There was no going back to get it. So I was holding my pants up the whole way with one hand. And then flew to JFK, and once I got there it was even more of a hassle with lines and customs, and then another security checkpoint line to get to the gate to take me to where I was going in upstate New York, Ithaca. And it was there on that plane to Ithaca, and I'll get to this, that I happened to meet somebody, and there either was a huge coincidence or was it a coincidence, and I will get to that after I talk about my day going through the paces of a Benedictine monk in this ancient abbey in Léhon, France. And it was really, I didn't plan this. A friend of mine in France, Val, it was her idea, and she just asked me. She said they had this going on there. She saw it in their local newspaper, advertisement, I guess, to see if anybody was interested, that they were putting on this, I don't know what you call it, event, where if you sign up for it, then they'll take you through the Abbey, and you will experience the life of a monk from the Benedictine order. And I said, sure, sign me up. So she signed me up for it, and I didn't really know what to expect, but it sounded cool. So the day came, it was on a Sunday, the hike down there, and it was a really nice walk to get down. Very, very beautiful. And I went in the off season in March, so there wasn't much foliage, but it was still beautiful. From where I lived, where I was staying in Dinan, D-I-N-A-N, I spell it again, if anybody's interested to look it up. From where I was in Dinan, you could walk down the hill and you'd come to the Rance River. And then from there was a foot trail, and I'll be posting pictures of that. A nice path, footpath, and leads you about a 20-minute walk, and you get to Léhon, which now is part of Dinan. But Léhon really is all about the old fortress on the hilltop that's in ruins, and the Abbey, which is not in ruins. It's got quite a history. So I walked down there and didn't know what to expect. I'll just throw some pictures up. Here's one that I did not take. It's an aerial shot. Gives you an idea. Here's that. Gives you an idea of what the whole grounds look like. You can see the ruins of the fort on the hilltop, and pretty much everything else you're looking at there is the Abbey and former outbuildings that used to be part of the whole monastery there. You know, a tannery and a miller's and things that people used. So that's that. And most of these pictures, they're my pictures. The ones that don't look like summertime and the ones inside the Abbey are pictures I took. But I was not able to take pictures or videos of this event because we walked up there and it was time, and was met by a woman wearing monk's clothes, habit, I guess, gray monk's robe with a belt around the waist. And she had a clipboard, and lo and behold, my name was on the list. And there were 6 of us. There was actually 3 women and 3 men that signed up for it. And first thing we did was hand in my cell phone, got turned in, and some other things, and they locked them up in a box. And from that point on, it was understood that there was no talking. I guess that's part of a monk's habit, is silence. So nobody spoke. And there was different people there wearing monk's robes, and there was a priest. And I was made to understand when the whole event was over and I could talk, the people that were there were members of a church. So, and the priest was an actual priest, and he had designed the whole course and led it. And the other people were presumably members of his church that had volunteered to do this, and they all dressed up like monks. And there were singers, and there was other people that were helping out with this event, which I was grateful to. So, all right, this is what happened. I got my monk's robe, a gray one, put on with a rope belt, if you wanted to wear one, and turned in my cell phone, and no more Tim Blab, silence. And there were 3 women and 3 men, and I was one of the men. And so the 6 of us were given a long length of rope that there was a monk leading this, a person dressed in a monk's robe. I don't know if they're actually a monk. I don't know. They're leading this, and they handed us a rope, one big length of rope, really thick, with knots tied in it. And we just figured out you're supposed to grab onto the rope with your right hand. And so we all lined up and we're holding onto the rope, and this person that was leading us had the front of the rope and led us in a line through the Abbey places that were, I think, off limits to the public. So it was kind of nice. And the first thing we did, we went up a few flights of really old stone stairs. And you can like just sense the age of this place. At least I did. And we wound up in this like loft. I found a picture of it on the web. This isn't my picture because I wasn't allowed. There's no cell phones. But here's the room we were taken into. And when we went into this room, it was really dark. There were no lights on. You could scarcely see. It was dark up in there. But I was like really in awe. I think somebody told me I was all just one big smile on my face for half of this thing. So they let us in there on this rope, into this room. Nobody said a word. But I looked down and there were 6 mats, really thin mats, maybe an inch thick, big enough for a person to lay on. 3 on one side of the room and 3 on the other side with a path through the middle. And we just kind of figured out we were supposed to lay down because it was dark. And the priest, I think he was on one end in another room watching us. He wasn't saying a word. And the other person in the monk's robe was on the other end. And we were like in the middle and they didn't say a word. Not a word was spoken. So we laid down, each of us on a mat. And I'm laying there. I guess we were supposed to sleep, take a nap. We were there for a while. It was pitch black. It wasn't quite pitch black. It was dark. And you could hear birds, like doves and what sounded like an owl, actually, in here. It was pretty cool. Honestly, it made me think of something like Harry Potter or something. Sorry, I know it's church. But I laid there thinking, wow, this is like, wondering how many people have gone through this building. You know, it's the history of it. And I knew there must have been a lot of spirits around there, but I didn't experience anything like that. I wasn't looking for that. I was just kind of soaking it on the experience in. So we lay there in silence, and the whole thing, honestly, I think it was a very good idea of the priest to have us do that from the start. Because it got us to quiet down, like internally quiet down, just laying there in silence in this place that was fairly dark, unlike the picture here. And it reminded me of my infantry days in the Army. When I would take a squad of men out at nighttime on a patrol into enemy territory, I wouldn't leave the patrol base very far at night. And this was planned. I would sit down, I would picture off, I'd give the signal, everybody stop, and quietly take my helmet off, sit down in the dirt, the grass, whatever, leaves, lay my rifle down, and everybody would do the same, and nobody would speak. And we just soak up, get tuned in to the environment, the night, the woods, and we just sit there silently. And when I thought we were ready, usually about 15 minutes later, I just would pick my helmet up and they would too, my rifle. And what a difference once we started moving through the woods again as an infantry unit. Everybody's walking like cat-like, really quiet and tuned in. Your 5 senses tuned right in. And that's what happened with this. I think it got everybody quieted down and tuned in, hopefully spiritually. So the priest rung a little bell and we got up from our mats, and the other person handed us this big rope again, and we all took our place in line and held on to it with our right hand, and they led us down the stairs in a line, and we wound up in the Abbey, I guess it's called, the big room where the worship services go on. And I went there before. This was a group of people before me, and I sat in there and took a little video clip of they were playing some Gregorian chants, which they did with us, but the people in the white robes you might notice way up in front, they actually were singing, and not the Gregorian chants you're hearing on this video that I'm going to put, But when that stopped, these people started singing, and they were beautiful. When the Gregorian chants recording presumably ended, those four came forward and sang. And for all I know, they might have sang the Gregorian chants. They were very beautiful. It might have been them. I'm not sure, but I know they did sing. And so here's that little video I took, and just to give you an idea. All right, so, I noticed that I got the feeling like I shouldn't have been in there taking that video, so I stopped and I left. And I didn't really know what was going on there. I didn't know that that was like a group before me, because it wasn't just my group of 6 doing this. I think they were doing this through the day, through the evening, with different groups. So that's what that looked like, and they led us into that room, and we all sat down, all 6 of us, in these really old wooden ornate chairs with our backs against the wall facing the altar. And the priest gave a Bible reading quite extensively in French, which I didn't understand what he was reading, but he's reading the Bible. And the Gregorian chants were playing. And then he stopped, and the 4 people in white robes stood up and came forward and started singing. And it was beautiful. Their singing was beautiful. I didn't get it. The video I just showed, that wasn't, I believe that was a recording of Gregorian chants they were playing. But when that recording stopped, those 4 came forward and they started singing. Something, I don't know what it was, but it was really nice. So those big old buildings were made for acoustics. And it was really something. I thought my mom would love this, and I did some praying, and I said, Lord, tell my mother and tell Jen I said hello. I hope they're doing well. I'm sure they are. And I just felt like they were smiling at me, both my mother and Jen. I'm not saying they were, but I just had this feeling that like they were looking down at me, and they were smiling at me. That's what I felt like. And these people in the white robes started singing, and I got choked up. I really got, I had a hard time fighting back tears. I hate to say it. I bet I wasn't the only one. I bet there were a few other people that were pretty emotional. It was beautiful. So that concluded. And then we all got up and took our little rope and were let out. And I thought that was the end of it. I thought, well, that was nice. That was pretty cool. It wasn't over. There's more to a monk's life than sleeping and worship and prayer and meditation. There's work. So next thing I know, they led us out and around through different places of that old abbey. And we wound up in the back, outdoors. And again, I wish I couldn't take pictures. It would have ruined it. It was the right idea to have us all turn in our cell phones, because somebody like me inadvertently would have tried to take pictures, and that would have been a spoiler. So, here's some pictures of the back of the Abbey at Léhon, that I took from the other side of the river, the Rance River, where their property borders the Rance River. And so they let us back there, and I'm like, oh, we're going to work. I didn't sign up for work. I'm going to work. I was all right with it. And they had 6 sets of baskets, 2 baskets for each of us, wooden baskets. And so we all got in front of these baskets, 2 per each of us. And one basket was full of onions that they had dug. It looked like shallots. And they looked like they had been freshly dug. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with these? And the other basket was empty. Well, the monk that was leading us around the rope, she came up and demonstrated to take, didn't say a word, just demonstrated, took a shallot and cleaned it and took some of the husk off and dressed it up real nice and neat and put it inside the empty basket. So I started working through all these, and so did everybody else, cleaning up these shallots and putting them in the empty basket. And we worked long enough in silence that it felt like work, honestly. And I looked over at the woman next to me. She wasn't saying a word. And I think everybody looked to be about my age that was there, honestly. Which, it'd be nice to see younger people doing this stuff, but they were all like my age. I would say roughly 50s, 60s, middle-aged, maybe older, maybe 70s, I don't know. There's a couple there that looked like they might have been in their 70s. But this woman next to me, she was all grins too, like me. And she looked over at me. She didn't speak the English. She didn't speak, period. Neither did I, but we just kind of looked at each other grinning like, what? This was really, I thought it was so cool. I really didn't expect this. I really enjoyed it, and so did they. I think everybody did. So we cleaned up all our shallots, and the other basket was now full of good shallots. Looks like stuff you'd buy in a store. Prepared. Not, what I'm saying. At any rate, so we did all that, and we took our shallots and we dumped them all into a big basket, and we got our rope, and we were led back into the Abbey and out and around the building, and there were a few tourists, not many tourists there, that saw us, and they were wondering, they were taking our picture. They didn't know what we were doing. I think some of them, they had to have been a bit of a sight. All of us in monks' robes, being led around on ropes, on a rope, in a line. Well, we wound up in this room, a really old, everything's stone room. It looked like it was pretty old. Some parts of the Abbey actually go all the way back to the year 900. Actually, the Abbey was, I want to tell you a little history, then I'll say what happened in the room. The final phase of this thing. But the Abbey at Léhon was founded by 7 monks from Wales, Welsh monks, because Brittany has a very strong Celtic history. It really is actually part of England, I believe, or Britain, but it has a very strong Celtic history. It's settled by people from Scotland, Western England, and Wales in the 7th century. So 7 monks founded that abbey and started building, the original abbey that was there at that time in the 7th century. And then another church was built there, an abbey, larger works, built in the year, I think, 925, and had quite a history. Like the Vikings sacked it. It got pillaged by the Vikings for about 8 years, and they would rebuild it. And it has a relic of one of the saints, and you can read up on that if you want. I'm not going to go that far into it. And then it would fall into disrepair, and then it would be repaired, and it's had its ups and downs, but it still stands. And some parts of this are older than other parts. And this room that we were let in was one of the older parts of the Abbey. And we were led in there, and we all took a seat at this really long wooden table. And the priest went up this little flight of stairs into this little like perch that was about maybe, I don't know, it was built into the wall of stone. And it was about maybe 8 feet up above us, facing us on the wall with like these like stone rails around it. And the priest was up there reading from the Bible in French the whole time. We ate, actually, because another monk came up and put a little plate with a piece of bread. Really, French make very good bread. I've never had bread so good as in France. And it's like all wood-fired ovens, very, very good. And this was no exception. We got a piece of bread, looked very rustic. Even part of the crust was burnt, blackened a little bit, not too much. A very rustic piece of bread, and then a small cup that they poured some water in. This monk came up and poured water in each one, and that was our monk's dinner, bread and water. And so we all ate in silence. I said some prayers, and everybody's in their own thoughts, having their own experience, while this priest is reading in French the Bible. And then there were periods of silence where I think it kind of encourages a person to meditate and pray. So that went on for a while, and eventually the person leading us picked the rope up again, and that was our cue to stand up, and we took our place on the rope. We're led back around and led into the room, and that was it. I got my cell phone back, gave them back their monk's robe, and talked to some of them. I mean, they spoke some English, not much. But my friend was there, and she translated for me. She was there through the whole thing with me, Val. She was one of the women, it was pretty cool. It was a pretty good experience, honestly. She enjoyed it quite a bit herself. And I asked who put this on. Did the church or no, the government, the French government? It was under like an educational program to kind of promote the history of France's cultural history. But the church put the thing together. The government, I don't know if they funded it or what, sanctioned it. But the father, the priest that was giving the Bible readings and was present, he designed the whole course, I was told. And the other people that were there assisting or singing were members of the church, I would presume his church. And I told them I really enjoyed it. And they asked me what my reason was for doing this. Historical, I said somewhat for the historical because I really like the Abbey. I said, but also spiritual reasons for myself, because yeah, one of the reasons I came to France was to kind of get some, like a spiritual retreat. And so I really enjoyed it. And I would recommend that to anybody that's looking to quiet down in their life, get a spiritual refocus, or I don't know. Everybody has their own reasons, I guess. So this is something, when I left, is this a coincidence or not? When I left, just, I don't know, 3 days ago actually, when I got back here, and a long travail, travel comes from the word travail, which means work, travail in French. And it is work, I'm telling you, these days, traveling international with the security measures. So I finally got, so tired, weary, bone weary, 4-hour layover in JFK and about a good thing because better part of an hour and a half was spent in the line for security. And then I had to catch a bus shuttle to get me to the gate where I would catch my final flight back to Ithaca, New York, and that time finally came, and I took that picture. I was so happy to see this sign, boarding now. You know, Ithaca, my flight, right? So I got on board this little jet. Really, it only had 2 rows of, had 2 seats on either side. And I paid some extra money because I figured I'd be tired. I paid some extra money so that I picked a seat in the very back of the aircraft where there was nobody sitting. And when I got on the plane, I was told there had been a change and they reassigned my seat. I don't know why, but they did. And the plane, the jet, it was like about 75% empty. I'd say 25% of the seats were full. That's it. The rest was empty. And they put me, I was supposed to be on seat 19A, and that would have given me 3 seats just to relax in the very back of the aircraft by myself. It's an hour flight roughly from New York City to JFK. JFK in New York City to Ithaca Airport, where my car is waiting, and a 25-minute drive and I'm home. But they put me in seat 10D. All right, I didn't care at this point. I just wanted to get on this plane and go. Well, I come to seat 10D, and the guy sitting next to me on the aisle side, 10C, older man, actually older than myself, tall man. And I said, "Oh, I guess I'm sitting next to you." And he said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't plan this. I actually paid extra money so I could pick my own seat in the very back of the aircraft, but I have no idea why they reassigned me to sit here next to you." Okay, so I sit down, I'm by the window, and we got to talking. He's coming from Texas, I think. He told me Austin, Texas, and he was going back to Ithaca. And he asked me where I came from, and I told him Paris, and he was really interested in that because, lo and behold, this man had traveled quite a bit through his life, and he still was traveling. And he'd been to France before, years. He hadn't been to France in quite a while. And so he was interested and asked me what I was doing in France. And I said, I was staying in Brittany. And he said, "Did you see the Mont Saint-Michel?" I said, "I did." And I said, "Have you ever been there?" He said, "No." I said, and I talked about that for a while. And he said he was interested in the abbeys, that he'd been to a lot of them in France, but he never made it to Mont Saint-Michel. He wished he had, but he hadn't. And I told him about this monk experience in Léhon, at the Abbey in Léhon. And he was greatly interested in that. And come to find out, this man had been a Benedictine monk, off and on, earlier in his life, and he said he still goes back and does the whole monk thing, retreat periodically. And what are the odds of that? And he was telling me about it in length, how to do it. And he said, you don't even have to go to Europe for it. He said there are places, and he told me where they were in upstate New York, where you can go be a monk, do the time out thing and silence thing, the whole thing that monks do. And it's not like being a priest, I think, where you sign up for life. I think men and women do these things periodically. It may be a lifelong venture for them. Or as one of my viewers here, that Charles had told me that he'd been a Benedictine monk at some point in his life as well. And it's just something people do, men and women do, for their own reasons. And, I felt like maybe that's something I need to do, that maybe God's telling me I need to look at this. I forgot to say, but back in Léhon, and my friend that signed me up, Val, who signed me up for this one-day thing, she told me there was also a course that I was welcome to sign up for, where you could go for a day, a week. You could stay as long as you want. And you could do this thing for months or years if you wanted to. and that I was welcome to do it, to sign up for it. And I very well might do that. I may go back and do that. So that's on the table. Back to the plane. This man was telling me about his experiences as a Benedictine monk, as well as Charles here on my channel has at some different places written and commented about that. And then I wound up doing this in Léhon. Coincidence? I don't know. I don't think so. So I'm going to give some thought and prayer to that. And this man told me where I could do this in upstate New York. And he told me that he didn't totally believe a lot of some of the ritualistic, paranormal kind of spiritual things with the Catholic Church, like some of the saints, like Padre Pio. I brought him up about how he had, had dealt with different spirits and situations, and this guy said he didn't know if he believed all that. And he said he liked the Catholic Church. He said he basically believed in Christ and the Trinity and all that, and the message, but he didn't know how much he believed in a lot of the other spiritual aspects with angels, demons, and stuck spirits, and purgatory. He didn't know if he believed any of that stuff, and I started telling him my stories. I mean, I had this guy for over an hour. I told him about my 3 encounters with the angels. I told him my stories dealing with God that you've heard on here, on this channel. And he was deeply interested in this. And there were a few people around me that were tuned in because I could tell they were listening. They weren't saying a word. And they were tuned in to what I was telling this man, my stories about the angels and the 2 in the stream in white robes and the man on the bridge that appeared out of nowhere, saved my life and then vanished. The man in the swamp that did the same thing and vanished. And, things like that. And like I said, I just don't talk about these things on YouTube. And I'll tell you what, I needed to hear what he had to say about going to do these things in the monasteries as a monk, in my case, a man, or, I guess for women it'd be a nun. He said it was good just to get sometimes a little time out, quiet time. Everybody has their reason in life. I feel like I'm struggling in life to find purpose with people that were central to my life suddenly gone. People that were very, very central. They gave my life purpose more than you don't realize it, and they're gone. It left a big vacuum and a broken heart in me, missing these people. And so I've been really struggling at what's my purpose in life anymore? Why am I here, and I have faith in God. And I was hoping that maybe going to France in this old town that maybe I could quiet down and get some direction. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. I just have to have faith in God. I accomplished the things I wanted to do there. I started a book. I'm 28 pages into a book based on things I've learned about grieving. And the title of the book's going to be my mother's words to me when she appeared to me. And that title of the book's going to be, It Has to Be This Way, Just for Now. And I hope to write a book that might help some people out who are going through enormous grieving, loss of somebody dear to them and close. So I'm still working on that. And I don't know, was it a coincidence that I would wind up being reassigned to sit next to this man who shared his views on being a monk, a Benedictine monk, periodically through his life. He'd done it, and he still does. From time to time, go back to these places and put on the habit of a monk and do the things they do. And the fact that I would go through this course, I didn't plan this. Somebody signed me up for it when I got to France. This wasn't on my plan. And like I said earlier, I accomplished the things I set out to do. I went to in Dinan, there's actually three churches. You know, the Basilica Saint-Séverin, which is they're all very old, like 1,000 years old. And I lit a candle and put a picture of Jen there and said some prayers for her and remembrance, reverence. And I did that for Jen there, and I went to Saint-Magloire, which is, both of these places, like a 5-minute walk from where I was staying. And I did the same thing for my mother. I lit a candle and put a picture of her and said some prayers in there for her. Because I think Jen would have liked it. My mother would have liked this place. I know they would have. Like Jen's part of the one that got me to look at France. We were bored one time just cruising to YouTube and the internet, and we saw France, and we both said, wow, it looks really pretty. She wanted to go there with me, but she didn't make it. And then there's the Abbey at Léhon, which is about a 20-minute walk down the river, if you go that way, or you can go by road. So that's it, really. I mean, I like the idea of taking a break from technology, taking a break from the world being like my car that I like driving around, or things I'm trying to do, projects I'm working on here in the house, and music, and namely the internet and social media are a massive distraction. Taking a break from all that, and quietness with the regimen that I got. I think the work is part of it. To work with your hands, you know, that's part of it. To help you break away from this. And, you know, I think the hard work, there's something godly about hard work. And meditation, prayer, work, sleep, fellowship, quiet fellowship, and meal times, a simple meal, very humble. My brief experience was it's a very humble existence, a monk. I gathered. You're not in the limelight. You're not the leader. You're really submitting it all at that point. Your technology, all your worldly cares, everything, and a very quiet, humble regimen. It's just what some of us need. So everybody has their reasons. I have faith in God, but I'm still struggling in some ways. Really, day to day, with just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. But just live, I guess I'm doing it. So, all right, I guess that's about all I had to say on this. I'm back from France, and I'm already thinking about going back again. Maybe to go to that place, maybe take a little more time now and do the whole retreat, the spiritual retreat, as a monk. Try to see what God wants me to do. Well, I think of you all, and I hope everybody's doing very well. I trust you are. And keep the faith. Take care. Till next time.